Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're diving into the legend of Van Helsing, one of the names that echoes the loudest through the dark corridors of horror film history, and still manages to make even the most skeptical viewer's skin crawl, is Gabriel Van Helsing, or simply Van Helsing for friends, and for the monsters who can no longer tell the tale. This guy isn't your typical dusty, Gothic vampire hunter from some old folktale. Nope. He's the turbocharged, stylized, and cinematically cool version of the legendary Abraham Van Helsing, the scholar who, in the original Dracula, faced off against the fanged Lord himself. But while that old doctor wielded crucifixes and scalpels, this new Van Helsing carries automatic crossbows, blessed blades, and gadgets straight out of the Vatican's secret labs. It's like James Bond went to an exorcism and never came back the same. Van Helsing doesn't hunt monsters for fun or out of personal trauma. He does it because he literally works for the Vatican. Yes, that Vatican. The one with the robes, the stained glass, and the darkest secrets in history. He's their secret weapon, their star hunter, their divine hitman, with holy authorization to destroy anything that breathes or tries to breathe from beyond the grave. Vampires, werewolves, ghosts, demons, nameless abominations, all fall before his crossbow. That's why, in the cinematic universe, Van Helsing 2004 made him the ultimate protagonist, the dark hero who fights in the name of faith, but with the swagger of someone who'd sip whiskey while decapitating a vampire. And if that wasn't enough, there's even an animated prequel, The London Assignment, giving us a glimpse into the past of this celestial hunter, a past filled with secrets, guilt, and a touch of biblical tragedy. His very presence commands attention. The way he moves, talks, fights, everything about him screams living legend. He has that weary gaze of someone who's seen things even hell won't remember, and the lethal precision of a man who's killed before breakfast, yet still makes it to Mass on time. Van Helsing isn't just a character. He's a symbol. The perfect balance between the sacred and the damned, between light and darkness. And today, in this video, we're diving headfirst into his story. We'll uncover who he was before becoming the hunter we all know, what demons quite literally marked him, and how he became the legend that wiped Europe clean of its most terrifying creatures. Because, according to the deepest lore and extended versions of his mythology, Gabriel wasn't born a mere mortal. Not at all. In his origin, he was an angel, one of the most powerful, loyal, and feared in the heavenly army. His title in the heavens, the left hand of God, which should already tell you, this wasn't a harp-playing choir boy. Gabriel was the divine messenger of the most fearsome prophecies, the one who revealed to prophets what was to come, wars, apocalypses, and sacred births. He was the one who appeared before Daniel, Zechariah, and even the Virgin Mary to announce the birth of Jesus, an angel of light, but with fire in his eyes. But you know how it goes. Even heaven has drama, and like in every divine story, something went terribly wrong. God sent him down to earth in human form to battle the demonic forces trying to corrupt his creation. Thus, in the year 1460, Gabriel fell into the world of men and joined the Knights of the Holy Order, a kind of medieval celestial commando sworn to maintain balance between good and evil. There he met a man who would change his destiny forever, Vladislaus Dracula, a noble, charismatic, and brutal warrior. The two became brothers in arms, inseparable until love, that old mortal trap, ruined everything. Dracula broke his vows and fell in love. When his beloved died, his desperation led him to attempt her resurrection through dark arts. And when Gabriel discovered this, he had to do the unthinkable, confront him. The battle was so devastating it seemed the earth itself split open. In the end, Gabriel killed his best friend with his own hands. Crushed by guilt, he begged God to erase his memories. And God, with his usual sense of drama, agreed. Thus was born a man with no past, no name, no memory, but with a purpose branded into his soul. For centuries, Gabriel wandered the world hunting monsters without knowing why. He just felt that inner pull, that near-instinctive drive to eradicate evil. Until one day, gravely wounded after a battle with an infernal creature, he was found at the gates of the Vatican. The knights recognized him, healed him, and returned him to his purpose, to become heaven's executioner against darkness. From that moment on, his name became synonymous with fear among the creatures of the underworld. Where others saw myths, he saw targets. Where others prayed, he pulled the trigger. And so, the streets of Europe trembled with every mission. Vampires abandoned their castles. Werewolves fled to the mountains, and even demons thought twice before coming out to play. One of his most iconic missions took him to London, the heart of mystery and eternal fog. A series of brutal murders with a disturbingly supernatural twist put him on the trail of an old acquaintance of science and madness, Dr. Henry Jekyll, better known by his monstrous alter ego, Mr. Hyde. Van Helsing, always one step ahead, infiltrates his underground laboratory, because if there's one place no one should go, that's exactly where he goes first. Among test tubes and corpses, he discovers something terrifying. Jekyll is obsessed with Queen Victoria. But not only that, he has her under a spell that transforms her into a young woman each night, feeding her beauty with the souls of freshly dead victims. A romance worthy of a telenovela, but with demonic undertones. Obviously, Van Helsing wasn't just going to stand by and watch. However, before he could intervene, Jekyll kidnaps the Queen and escapes in a hot air balloon. Because if you're going to be a 19th century villain, at least make your getaway stylish. And there we have it. The celestial hunter chasing a mad scientist through London's skies. Using his grappling hook, Van Helsing launches into the air, beginning an epic battle hundreds of meters above the ground. Jekyll, or rather, Hyde, unleashes his most savage side. What follows is a deadly dance between corrupted science and divine fury, with the entire city as their stage. The confrontation reaches its climax atop the unfinished London Bridge, shrouded in smoke, fire, and screams. Finally, Van Helsing delivers a mortal wound to Hyde, though the monster manages to escape before falling for good. A bitter victory, but just another mark in the long list of triumphs for the hunter who never stops. After rescuing Queen Victoria from the clutches of the deranged Dr. Jekyll, a man as dangerous as his own scientific ego, Gabriel Van Helsing can finally breathe easily for about 5 seconds. Because, of course, in his life, peace lasts less than a candle in a hellish storm. The Queen, still under the lingering effects of the spell that keeps her young, beautiful, and with an almost supernatural glow, approaches the hunter with a smile that's equal parts flirtatious and grateful. She takes his hand, looks into his eyes, and with that air of majesty and repressed desire, promises to reward him with a kiss worthy of a fairy tale. Everything seems like the perfect ending. Hero, maiden, sunrise, end credits. But, as always in Van Helsing's life, the sunrise brings not peace, but problems. The first ray of sunlight breaks the enchantment, and, before the hunter's stunned gaze, the radiant young woman transforms back into the real Queen Victoria, an elderly woman with wrinkled skin, tired eyes, and more lines than patience. The scene shifts from fairy tale to awkward comedy in seconds. The silence is so thick, it could be cut with a silver stake. And then the roar. The Queen, horrified and furious over her shameful moment of weakness, bursts out in a storm of divine thunder-level screams. She accuses Van Helsing of treason, witchcraft, and probably of ruining her self-esteem. In a fit of wounded dignity, she orders his immediate arrest. Van Helsing, long used to being blamed for everything unexplainable, doesn't bother arguing. With that familiar not-again look, he activates his grappling hook, smashes through a window, and dives into the London fog before the guards even realize what's happening. Safe, well, relatively, and with a few more bruises to add to his collection, Gabriel sends his report to the Vatican. He details the Jekyll case and the dangerous duality of Mr. Hyde, but he knows his mission isn't over. Hyde is still out there, and this hunter doesn't leave loose ends. His next stop takes him to the heart of Europe, Paris, the city of lights and of nightly screams. There, among damp alleys and gaslit shadows, Van Helsing tracks his enemy to a crumbling building seemingly abandoned by both God and the architects. What follows is pure adrenaline. Van Helsing bursts through the windows with his crossbow in hand, only to face a monster bigger, more grotesque, and more desperate than before. Mr. Hyde, now fully transformed, greets him with a laugh that shakes the building's foundations. The fight is a hellish ballet. Steel against claws, faith against fury. Hyde hurls tables, pillars, and chunks of wall. Van Helsing dodges, fires, rolls, and leaps. It's like watching a vengeful angel in slow motion battling sin itself. Finally, with one precise strike, Gabriel brings the beast down. But the moment of triumph is short-lived. Hyde falls, his monstrous body slowly twisting back until only the corpse of Dr. Jekyll remains. Just then, the Parisian police storm the building. They find Van Helsing standing there, weapons still smoking, beside the lifeless body of a respected scientist. And within seconds, the hunter becomes the hunted. Chased by the very authorities he's spent years protecting, Gabriel is forced to flee from city to city, leaving behind a trail of rumors. The murderer of Dr. Jekyll, the man who fights the devil, the fallen angel of the Vatican. With the mission at least partially completed, Van Helsing returns to Rome. There, within the damp walls and eternal candlelight of the Vatican, he delivers his report to the monks and alchemists who craft holy weapons with the precision of watchmakers and the madness of visionaries. The place looks like a hybrid between a monastery and a celestial steampunk lab. Automatic crossbows, holy water grenades, spinning silver blades, and crucifixes with hidden mechanisms. Everything built for one purpose: holy war against evil. There, Van Helsing receives his next mission, the most dangerous one yet: to travel to Transylvania, the cursed heart of Europe. His objective: destroy Dracula, the Lord of Vampires, a creature who, according to Vatican reports, has risen from the dead with a plan that threatens the balance between life and death itself. But this time, the mission carries a deeper purpose. He must not only eliminate the vampire, but also save the soul of the Valerius family, a noble bloodline that swore generations ago to vanquish Dracula. If they fail to fulfill their vow, their souls will remain trapped in purgatory for all eternity. Before departing, the Vatican gives Gabriel a fragment of an ancient scroll bearing a mysterious symbol and assigns him a traveling companion. Karl, a young friar, clever, curious, and with a tongue as sharp as his mind. Karl is the genius behind many of Van Helsing's weapons, as well as his unlikely comic relief. Where Gabriel sees sin, Karl sees a chance for science. Where Gabriel prays, Karl calculates. Together, they form the most improbable duo of the 15th century. Meanwhile, in the mountains of Transylvania, Anna Valerius and her brother Velkin attempt to capture a werewolf, one of Dracula's personal beasts, in an elaborate trap. The scene is pure tension: chains, cages, lightning, and screams. But the plan fails. Velkin manages to fire a silver bullet, wounding the creature, but not before being bitten. The werewolf's venom courses through his blood, and his fate is sealed. Days later, Van Helsing and Karl arrive at the village. The locals greet them with suspicion, crossing their arms and eyes alike. No one trusts the man in the black hat carrying holy weapons. Anna, proud, brave, and headstrong, confronts them with clear distrust. She has no interest in help from the Vatican, especially not from a stranger with a reputation as a fallen angel. But before she can drive them away, the sky darkens, clouds swallow the sun, and the air fills with shrieks. Dracula's 3 brides descend upon the village, spreading their wings like giant bats. It's chaos incarnate. Fire, screams, blood, and black feathers raining from the rooftops. Van Helsing, calm as ever, the calm of someone who's already survived the impossible, activates his weapons and fires with divine precision. He brings down one of the vampire brides. Her body bursts into light, disintegrating before it even hits the ground. The other 2 flee as the sunlight breaks through the clouds. After the battle, Anna approaches Van Helsing. She no longer sees him as an enemy, but as an unlikely ally. With a trembling voice, she reveals the truth. Her brother Velkin is dead or worse, transformed. That night, tragedy confirms her fears. Velkin, now a werewolf, emerges from the shadows, attacking without restraint. Van Helsing tries to stop him, aiming his crossbow, but Anna, desperate, intervenes. She can't let him kill what little family she has left. The creature flees into the night, leaving behind a trail of blood and tears. The trail leads them to a legendary place, the ruins of Dr. Victor Frankenstein's castle. There, amid thunder and reanimated corpses, they uncover Dracula's grand plan. The vampire doesn't just seek blood, he seeks creation. Thousands of cocoons hang from the ceiling, each one holding an unfinished creature. His goal, to use lightning energy and Velkin's werewolf power to bring them all to life. Van Helsing realizes that Dracula is attempting to replicate Frankenstein's experiments to create his own immortal army. Anna tries to rescue her brother, but it's too late. Velkin, fully consumed by the curse, attacks them. Amid the chaos, Dracula appears, and then he speaks Gabriel's full name, Gabriel Van Helsing. The sound of it freezes the air. Dracula smiles, a mix of mockery and nostalgia. "We know each other, Gabriel, from before time had a name." Van Helsing fires, throws stakes, crosses, and holy words. Nothing works. Dracula dodges every attack as if toying with him, taunting him, hinting at a history so ancient even angels dare not remember it. Forced to flee, Gabriel and Anna take refuge in the caves beneath the windmill where Frankenstein died years earlier. And there, in that sanctuary of ashes and echoes, they discover the impossible. Frankenstein's creature is still alive. Massive, sorrowful-eyed, and tormented at heart, the monster attacks them, believing they serve the vampire. But Van Helsing, with that near-divine intuition, sees what others cannot. A creature not of evil, but of suffering, a victim of human ambition and unbearable loneliness. The monster, a creature as tragic as it is colossal, stands before Van Helsing and Anna, his expression a haunting blend of fear, resignation, and a flicker of humanity that stubbornly refuses to die. His deep, trembling voice echoes through the frozen air as he reveals a horrifying truth. He is the key to Dracula's grand design. Without his existence, the vampire's dead offspring can never come to life. But with him, the Count could unleash a legion of abominations that would turn the entire world into a feast of shadows. Van Helsing understands instantly. This is no ordinary monster. It's the spark that could ignite the apocalypse. Without hesitation, Gabriel, Anna, and Frankenstein himself set out on a desperate flight to Budapest. There's no time to think, no time to rest, only to run and survive. Every step is a battle against fate. Every shadow could hide a fang or a claw. However, Dracula soon uncovers their plan. From the heights of his castle, his smile as cold as tombstone marble, he releases his 2 remaining vampire brides and the cursed Velkin, Anna's long-lost brother, now a soulless beast, to hunt them down without mercy. The confrontation comes swiftly. Among the rooftops and cobbled alleys of Budapest, Van Helsing proves exactly why the Vatican calls him their most lethal weapon. He moves with surgical precision, a perfect blend of hunter, soldier, and fallen angel. His crossbows whistle, his blades spin, and every stake he throws is a divine judgment. Amidst the chaos, he manages to slay another of Dracula's brides in a brutal clash, leaving behind a storm of blood and fire. But victory never comes without sacrifice. Velkin, consumed by the beast within, attacks Van Helsing with savage fury. In their struggle, his claws cut deep into the hunter before he falls dead. At that moment, the werewolf's curse passes to Gabriel, branding his fate with the mark of agony. From that day on, Van Helsing knows his time is limited. Each full moon will threaten to consume his very soul. And worst of all, the only creature capable of killing Dracula is the very one he is doomed to become. Peace doesn't last even a breath. Dracula's final bride, burning with vengeance, kidnaps Anna and drags her to the heart of Budapest, to the Count's castle itself. Van Helsing, wounded but relentless, devises a suicidal plan to offer Frankenstein's monster in exchange for Anna's freedom. The creature, fully aware of his role in this deadly game, agrees to hide in an ancient cemetery, hoping his sacrifice will give Gabriel the chance to save the woman he loves. With his loyal ally Karl by his side, Van Helsing infiltrates a lavish masquerade hosted by Dracula himself, a nightmare dressed in elegance. Golden masks, infernal chants, and laughter that sounds like echoes from the grave. Among the guests, one group stands apart: Dracula's vampires, dancing over the living like predators toying with prey. In the midst of this macabre carnival, Van Helsing manages to free Anna after a brutal fight that leaves the ballroom in ruins. But while they escape, Dracula's minions capture the monster and drag him back to the castle. The Count's plan moves forward, and his victory seems inevitable. Back in Transylvania, Karl, ever curious and sharp as a blade, digs into Dracula's origins. In the ancient scrolls of the Valerius family, he unearths a revelation that shakes him to the core. Dracula isn't just an ancestral enemy. He's a distant relative of the Valerius bloodline, a nobleman who centuries ago was slain by the left hand of God, a celestial being known as Gabriel. Yes, the same name borne by the hunter himself. Before his death, Dracula made a pact with the devil. He sold his soul for immortality, and his own father, horrified by the monster he'd created, imprisoned him in a fortress of ice. But the Count escaped, and ever since he has reigned in the shadows, feeding on blood and vengeance. Karl uncovers one more truth. The only creature capable of killing Dracula is a werewolf. And fate, with its twisted sense of irony, has already chosen the cursed one. With time running out, Van Helsing, Anna, and Karl decipher the secrets hidden within an ancient map found in the Valerius mansion. When combined with a fragment of the scroll Gabriel carries, it opens a mystical portal that transports them straight into Dracula's fortress. What they find there is a vision of hell itself. Laboratories filled with corpses floating in amniotic fluid, lightning feeding impossible machines, and the vampire's offspring awaiting birth amid electric roars and demonic wails. Frankenstein's monster, chained and wired into the machinery, serves as the power source keeping the horror alive. His body is the spark that will breathe life into thousands of abominations. Knowing the world's fate hangs in the balance, Van Helsing charges through the castle's corridors, freeing the creature while Karl and Anna search for the cure to the werewolf's curse. But time runs out, Dracula's children begin to awaken, and the sky above Transylvania fills with deformed creatures descending upon the village. Chaos reigns. In the final climactic battle, Van Helsing faces Dracula head-on. No masks, no lies, just two ancient beings bound by tragedy and damnation. With his cursed grin, Dracula unveils the ultimate truth. Gabriel Van Helsing is, in fact, the Archangel Gabriel, reincarnated in human form. It was he who killed Dracula centuries ago, and he who stole his soul. The revelation ignites a storm inside the hunter. Accepting his fate, Van Helsing lets the beast take control. He transforms into a towering werewolf, a fusion of divine power and primal fury. The battle that follows is a spectacle of destruction. Two supernatural forces colliding under thunderous skies, among crumbling pillars and screams that shake the castle to its core. Finally, with a roar that splits the heavens, Van Helsing sinks his fangs into Dracula's neck. The Count lets out a final scream before disintegrating, along with all his descendants. Darkness falls. Dracula's reign is over, but victory comes shrouded in tragedy. In his wild form, the werewolf accidentally kills Anna. When Karl, in tears, administers the cure, Van Helsing returns to his human self, only to realize he has destroyed the woman he loved most. In the final scene, Gabriel watches over her body in silence, heavier than 1,000 words. Alongside Karl, he cremates her on a cliff overlooking the sea, the wind carrying her ashes into the dawn. Among the clouds, a celestial vision shows Anna smiling, reunited with her ancestors in heaven. The Valerius family, at last, is freed from purgatory. Van Helsing, heartbroken but at peace, mounts his horse and rides off with Karl into the horizon. The sun rises over the ruins of the castle, and over a world saved once more. The story ends, but the legend has only begun. Gabriel Van Helsing, the monster hunter, the fallen angel, the cursed hero, still rides through the shadows, guarding the thin line between light and darkness. If we're talking about living legends in the world of horror and fantasy cinema, there are names that people whisper with reverence, and then there's Gabriel Van Helsing, a hunter who seems less like a man and more like a divine force disguised in human form, a myth with a human face, his very silhouette enough to make vampires, werewolves, demons, and every cursed creature that ever breathed under the wrong moon tremble. His mere presence commands attention. Those who've seen him and lived to tell the tale describe him with the precision of someone recalling a dream that brushes against a nightmare. A man with fair skin, weathered by time and the dust of forbidden roads, middle-aged, though with that timeless aura that makes guessing his true age impossible. His hair, brown and slightly long, falls over his shoulders in a naturally careless disorder, the kind of look only a man who's spent more nights hunting monsters than sleeping could have. A faint beard frames his face, just enough to emphasize a firm jawline and a gaze that mixes exhaustion, faith, and an unshakable sense of purpose. That gaze, cold and burning at once, seems to have witnessed too many deaths, too many resurrections, and far too many truths no mortal should ever know. But what has truly turned Van Helsing into an immortal visual icon is his attire. It's not a costume. It's an extension of his soul, an armor woven from faith and gunpowder. His outfit is as functional as it is symbolic. A dark linen shirt, reinforced flannel trousers, a leather vest hardened by years of battle, and above all, that long black coat flowing behind him like a cloak of darkness. Every fold seems to hold a secret, every movement a warning. Along its edges, the leather bears scorch marks, cuts, and scars, as if the clothing itself had survived hell alongside him. His wide-brimmed black hat casts a shadow over his eyes, giving him the aura of a mythic figure, the faceless avenger of the night. His boots, tall and reinforced, aren't just for style. They're built to wade through mud, cross graveyards, and trudge through the filth of sin. Everything about him seems designed for one purpose: to hunt what should not exist. And beneath that iconic attire, Van Helsing conceals a true arsenal: automatic crossbows, silver stakes, twin saws, vials of holy water, and crucifixes etched with ancient prayers. Every weapon has a story, every tool a divine purpose. Some are blessed, others cursed, but all are deadly in his hands. He's the kind of man who could walk into a cathedral and have even the gargoyles greet him by name. His personality mirrors his destiny: solitary, watchful, incapable of fully trusting anyone. His life is defined by the eternal war between light and darkness, and he himself is the line that separates them. Van Helsing lives with eyes always alert, as if the world itself were a perpetual battlefield. His instinct is that of a predator, but his heart belongs to a penitent. Every monster he kills takes him one step further from the redemption he seeks. Yet he keeps hunting, because if he doesn't, no one else can. Though he serves the church faithfully and answers to the Holy Order, Gabriel is no blind zealot. His relationship with faith is complex, a blend of devotion and guilt. He has seen too many atrocities committed in God's name, too many innocents die in the rubble of holy wars. He knows the price of duty is the damnation of the soul. That's why he confesses often, though the words of absolution never ease his burden. To many within the Vatican, Van Helsing is not a saint, but a tool, a blessed executioner. And to ordinary people, he's a killer walking under the shadow of the cross. Yet beneath that mask of coldness lies a man bound by an unbreakable moral code. Van Helsing never kills for pleasure or impulse. Every life he takes weighs on his conscience. His sense of justice transcends the orders he's given. This is proven when he spares Frankenstein's monster, seeing in him not an abomination but a victim. In that moment, the true Gabriel is revealed, a man who, even surrounded by darkness, still recognizes the divine spark within what others call monsters. When Anna Valerius, baffled by his nature, asks him whether he is a saint or a murderer, he answers with a phrase that defines him better than any sermon: a little bit of both. And he means it without irony, because that's what Van Helsing is: a warrior between worlds, a heavenly instrument with blood-stained hands. As for his abilities, calling Gabriel an exceptional human would be an understatement. His origin runs far deeper. Born from the incarnation of the Archangel Gabriel, the divine messenger and celestial warrior, Van Helsing possesses superhuman longevity. He appears barely over 30, yet he has lived nearly 1,850 years. Each century has been a lesson in combat, strategy, and faith. His physical strength defies logic. He can lift his own weight effortlessly, break down iron doors, or fight unarmed against creatures the size of demonic bears. His agility borders on the impossible, dodging vampire strikes, leaping from medieval towers, and battling beasts that would drive ordinary men insane at a glance. His reflexes are so sharp, it's as though he anticipates his enemy's movement before it happens, an instinct many attribute to his celestial heritage. His body endures mortal wounds without surrender. He has survived attacks from werewolves, Dracula's brides, and even the Count himself. After being bitten by Vulcan, his strength and endurance increase to near-divine levels, turning him into a living weapon of holy destruction. And among all his gifts, one separates him from ordinary mortals: the ability to sense true evil. Gabriel can perceive spiritual corruption, the very essence of sin within those he faces. It's as if a celestial radar hums inside him, distinguishing the demon in disguise from the condemned innocent. This gift guides his choices in ways other hunters could never understand, and grants him the clarity to avoid becoming what he fights. Over the centuries, He has been trained by the finest scholars and warriors of the Order. He masters hand-to-hand combat with lethal precision, knows ancient martial arts, and wields exorcism techniques blending science, alchemy, and prayer. In his hands, weapons become extensions of his will. His automatic crossbow, capable of firing dozens of blessed bolts per minute, is as feared among vampires as the first light of dawn. His spinning saws, custom revolvers, silver blades, holy gas grenades, and mechanical traps define the perfect fusion of medieval ingenuity and divine engineering. When the curse of the werewolf reaches him, Gabriel undergoes a devastating transformation. His strength multiplies, his senses sharpen to those of a hunter beast, and his inner fury threatens to consume him. But unlike other lycanthropes, Van Helsing retains partial control over the beast. His faith is the chain. His soul, though scarred, does not yield. Even in his wolf form, he bears the symbol of the cross etched into his fur, a reminder that though darkness dwells within him, the light never fully left. And yet, his greatest weakness isn't silver or curses, or the demons that hunt him. His greatest weakness is his humanity, because behind the mask of the perfect hunter lies a soul tormented by loss, doubt, and the eternity of his own purpose. He cannot die, yet he cannot live in peace. He is God's soldier, wondering whether the war he fights still has meaning. Killing Gabriel Van Helsing may not be impossible, but it is unthinkable, because when night falls upon the world, when the dead rise and demons hunger for flesh and faith, there is only one name even they dare not speak aloud: Van Helsing. The hunter, the redeemer, the fallen angel seeking redemption by hunting the very shadows he once helped create.